life in Him.
Hello, my name is Pontus J. Back from Rockpastor Ministries. Before, we had a series of programs called Life in Him, where we collected personal testimonies and life stories. We worked with different Christian TV stations, but the work became very demanding, very hard, and now we have had a break from Life in Him for a few years. Now, 2020, we decided to take up the work again as we're traveling a lot. We're missionaries, we go out to reach people with the message of Jesus Christ. And when we travel, we meet people who have testimonies like we do. And the first of this new series of programs is a wonderful brother that I have met a few times now. We're served together, and he's the pastor for a church called One Fire in Eustis, Florida. He has an amazing story, and he will tell you and open his heart for you here today about how he came to the Lord, how he found Jesus, and how Jesus found him, and what kind of person he was before. It's all about allowing Jesus to change us from the inside out. So here is John Tompkins from One Fire in Eustis, Florida.
It's been 7 years, but before that, my adult life, 20 years from 18, to 38, I had no idea who Jesus was. Besides Easter and Christmas, had something to do with that, and not until I really had a face-to-face encounter with God did I realize that that this stuff's for real. Mostly of just what the world has to offer. Bars, clubs, drinking. I really wasn't into anything illegal. It was all legal stuff. So why not indulge and have fun? But I couldn't figure out why my life was always a mess. I would try to do better and try to do things different, but basically it was just the same thing, and I was ended up in the same results. And not until I opened the Bible and I realized it had all the answers that I had been looking for such a long period of time. So I had just got out of jail, the county jail for arguing with my girlfriend and arguing with the cops, and they arrested me, and then they threw in all these charges, and it just got me in a bad place. And I got out of the jail, and they came to my house, and they served me with more charges, and they came and they took me to some therapy place, like a Baker Act type deal, and I ran out of that place. And I was like, man, I was just very self-destructive at that time, and the best idea that I could come up with was to go do something that was just insane. And basically, I was either gonna walk out of that situation in a new life that wasn't very, it wouldn't have been a good choice, or they would have killed me. And I didn't care either way, because I just knew that I had to get out of where I was and what I was doing. And I didn't know anything else. I knew nothing else. And as I was going en route to this place to go cause this havoc and either just see what happens, this voice spoke out and said everything I knew about God was a lie. And it started talking to me. I pulled over on the side of the road. It began to speak to me. It told me to actually go find an individual. I didn't know who that person. I knew who the person was, but I didn't know anything about them. I knew they were a pastor, So I started driving from church to church, looking for this pastor. His name was Moses. And not knowing that Moses was a person in the Bible. And the people are looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm going into church. It was like a Wednesday afternoon. I'm asking for Moses, and they're laughing at me. They're telling me to get out. And I finally went to like third or fourth church. And this little old lady comes out with a phone. And she hands me a phone. I take the phone. I'm like, hello? And it was this guy, Moses. He goes, I was waiting for you to call me. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, what is this? And he goes, I'll be at your house. And I was like, the guy knew where I lived. He came to my house and he says, you ready to give your life to the Lord? And I said, dude, I don't even know what you're talking about. To give my life to who? What are you talking about? So he went and bought me a Bible. And he told me what I needed to start to read. He says, read the book of John. And I remember that night I read it. And I hadn't ever read really anything ever before. Any books. I can't remember last time I read a book. Instructions and stuff like that, newspapers, but never I read a book. And so I started reading it, and I wanted to make sure I was reading it. And in 10 hours, I was reading this thing. And the next day, again, 10 more hours. And I think I got to like chapter 3 or 4. I didn't get very far. And the things I was reading, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't believe what I was reading. And I was like, this is telling me everything I wanted to know. I just started seeing things that I never saw before. I started hearing things that I didn't know. All the questions that I had started being answered. And that's when I went back to my work. Because the charges that I hadn't been convicted. I had just been arrested. So my work allowed me to come back to work until everything was cleared up. And when I got to work, I started asking people if they've ever read the Bible. And if they believed in Jesus and if they believed in what this says. And everybody was raising their hand. And I was like, I've been working with you guys for 10 years. And not one of you ever thought that you should let me know. You've seen all the crap that I've been in. Hey, maybe you need some Jesus. Maybe you need to read the Bible. Something. Come to church with you. And they're just looking at me. I'm like, you guys suck at this. You guys are like the horrible Christians, the most horrible Christians ever. Or people that call themselves Christians. And it was kind of jokingly, but I was serious. And then they said to me, we were scared how you were going to react to us if we told you what you were doing was wrong. And that hits me harder now, looking back at it, because I had built these walls. And when I started reading the Bible, that's what it started telling me, that I could forgive. When I first read that I could forgive, that was huge, because I was always taught you can't forgive. And you had to seek revenge. You had to go after that. And man, when I read that, it was like pounds lifted off of me. And when I experienced that, I started sharing it with people. And I ended up going to court 9 days after I opened the Bible for all these charges that I had. And when the judge got up there, when I got up in front of the judge basically said what I had said to myself the night before, that I had created a monster, that I didn't want my son to grow up to be like me, and that, God, if you were real, you would give me another chance. And the judge, when I faced the judge says to me, you are a monster, you're a mean person, you're an ugly person, you're a nasty person, but I don't think you're guilty of any of these charges, and I'm going to give you a second chance, because your son doesn't need to grow up the way like this, and if you don't do something, it's not going to be good for your son. And I just start crying, and he hits them out, says, not guilty, dismissed everything. And then I call that pastor back in the courtroom, and I said, I'm ready to give my life to the Lord now. And he says, he's like, what happened? And I just was kind of telling him what happened. I was like, you don't believe it? And at the same time, the attorney basically writes me a check and gives me my money back for that court that day. Says, I didn't do nothing. I didn't have to do anything. And that's when I first started seeing, the work of God. So I said, I got to get baptized today. And I told the pastor, and he goes, well, we don't have anything to baptize you with. So I said, don't worry about it. So from Daytona, I drove back here to Leesburg, and I stopped at Tractor Supply and got a horse trough, and I strapped it to my car, and I went there, and I said, I'm ready to get baptized. And he said, all right, let's do this. I said, I don't want to do it in front of anybody. And so I went home and got clothes, and he filled it up. And when I came back, there was about 30 people sitting in the church. And this was another weekday afternoon. and I got baptized. And, there wasn't anything magical that happened, or there wasn't anything mystical that happened that day. But the people that were in that room became my family. And those are the people still today, 7 years later, that we're serving with here. Harry and Ben, his parents. And we just started hitting the streets. My first Bible study after that took place, I remember sitting there and we're all talking about Jesus. And we're all reading the Bible and everybody's like saying what Jesus did in their life, and that's great. And I was like, does anybody here not believe in Jesus? And they're looking at me and they laugh. They're like, no. I said, then why are we sitting here talking to each other? I'm like, why are we out there talking to people that don't believe in Jesus? There's like a world that has no idea what this God can do. And they're looking at me, and I'm like, phew. And a couple of them, that's all we've been doing is just telling people about Jesus. Harry and I started out on the street corners playing at parks and just wherever we could find a place. And as people walked by, if they stopped, we prayed with them. We told them about Jesus. Some people laughed, some people cried, and it was just, we just started building His kingdom in just small little areas and just planting seeds. And 7 years, this is where He's led us, and we just keep going forward. If you don't believe in Jesus, it's because you've had a bad experience. Someone's told you something that's not true. You've taken on something that the enemy's whispered to you. You took it as its truth, and that's the goal of the enemy. The goal of the enemy is to destroy us, and we don't realize that until we experience Jesus. While we're getting destroyed, we're just thinking it's bad luck. We're thinking it's just where our circumstance is. We're just thinking that the world's against us, or it's everybody's fault. I'm trying to do everything I can. We start finding reasons, but it's really simple. We build these walls up because we're hurting inside, because we're dealing with stuff inside, and we build these walls up so we don't have to express ourselves, or we don't have to share things with other people. And you build that all up inside, the shame, the guilt, the remorse, the regret. When you start holding on to that stuff, the enemy starts using that against you. And so people try to self-medicate, they try to numb that, and they use everything they could possibly use to cover that up. And but Jesus wants to take that from us. He knows. He already knows. And He doesn't care. That's the best part. He doesn't care. And once you can confess these things to somebody that is only going to love you even more after you share this with him, it's amazing. And until you do that, you can't, words can't describe what takes place. It's just like it's freedom. It's what the chains fall off, and you just have a new outlook. Everything starts to see brighter and clearer, and you start to smile when you walk into rooms, and you don't have to put up this front anymore. You don't have to worry about who's looking at you or coming after you, because none of it matters anymore. It doesn't matter. I had a guy here last week that gave his life to the Lord, and he said, "I'm mad at Jesus." And I said, "Okay." And he says, "I don't want to give my life to the Lord." He goes, I'm mad at him. We're not friends. He doesn't like me." And I said, I didn't really know how to respond or react, what to say to that. So I said to him, "Let's start here. You just said you're mad at him. So if you're mad at him, that means you must believe in something." And I couldn't find anywhere in the Bible that says that you had to start off a relationship with God being friends with him. So I kind of said, if you believe in him and you're mad at him or he's mad at you, that's fine. He doesn't care. Let him show himself to you who he really is. And let's walk through this. And he did. He ended up truly confessing, repenting, and saying, God, there's been some crazy things in my life that I can't understand why these happened to me, but hopefully you can show me sometime. And man, it's just getting on your knees, just really just being for real about it, and being genuine in what's going on and what's taking place. Say, God, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. I need to know who you are, and show me yourself. And he will. He will. If you're sincere about it, he will. No, there's no way. My old, I see things from my old life. I remember things I did in my life, and I question. I go, what was I even thinking? I don't even know what made me do that. And I believe it's the spirits. I believe that it's the demons, it's the angels that had fallen, that are on assignment to destroy us. I mean, where do people come up with these ideas? Where do people come up with horror movies? Who came up with the human centipede? Who thought it was a great idea to write a movie about people stitching their mouths to other people's anuses? And then the world watches it enough to have 1, 2, and 3. Man, that's we were not designed and created to watch that, to enjoy that, or even to partake in anything like that. But these angels that are on assignment, the demons that are here, it's real. There's a world we can't see. And if we don't protect ourselves, if we don't suit up, if we don't stay on point and watch and stay vigilant in the Word and keep our relationship with Christ close and tight, man, the enemy is waiting for us to slip back. And it's when we feel comfortable going back to our old surroundings, going, yeah, it's all right if I go to a bar. It's all right if I watch this movie. It's all right if I listen to this music. It ain't going to affect me. It's not going to hurt me anyway. But it might not at that point, but slowly the enemy sees a soft spot, and he'll start working on that more and more and more. And he doesn't come with horns and a pitchfork. He comes in everything that our flesh desires and our flesh enjoys. And it's hard to resist because we're thinking, oh, God wants the same thing for us. So we said, man, this feels good. And that's another reason why the body and the staying connected and staying in fellowship, so we can hold each other accountable, so we can check on our brothers and sisters. It's hard to be a Christian by yourself. It's not impossible, but it's harder that way. Because who's going to tell you if you're stepping out, if you're not following Christ 100%? So it's not easy, but it gets easier, and it's rewarding, and it's definitely rewarding here on earth, just as much as what the reward is in the afterlife. I don't know. I think it'll be amazing. I think it'll be a place with it says a place no pain, but like no anxiety, no worries, no fear, just a peaceful place, and where everybody just lives in harmony with each other. There's no arguing, there's no bickering, there's no disease, there's no sickness. I'm looking forward to it.
John is a wonderful brother, and I've seen the fruit of his ministry. If you ever go to Eustis, Florida, I highly recommend you hook up with them when they have a meeting. It's not like the ordinary church. It's a lot of real stuff. You see the real thing there. You see broken people coming there in a real hunger for Jesus. We need to have that hunger, and when we're broken, we have that hunger because we don't want to live in those situations anymore. We want to have a life change. I had a life change. John had a life change. And you can have a life change. Those you're praying for can have a life change. And it's all about Jesus. He's the only way to the Father. He's the only way to salvation. He's the only way to eternal life in heaven. And it's really simple. You give your heart to Jesus. The most important thing is that we draw closer to God through Jesus Christ, and He has promised to draw closer to us. We will continue to make these short programs, and our plan is to have them online available for anyone to watch, and we will hopefully be able to do one episode a month. Thank you for watching, and God bless y'all.